Okay, so one of the big stumbling blocks for many business students is they can do the math, they can, graph an inequality, graph a line, whatever that is, but then when we get to word problems, suddenly all of their skills go out the window. So what I want to do is I want to just kind of walk you through how to set up an inequality based on a word problem. So I have a word problem here. It says seed costs for farmers are $40 per acre for corn and $32 per acre for soybeans. How many acres of each crop should the farmer plant if he wants to spend no more than $5,000 on seed? So whenever you're dealing with inequalities, you're going to have to come up with, okay, which symbol goes with which terminology. So when you see the term no more than, what I want you to do is I want you to think through and go, okay, if I want no more than 5,000, do I want 5,050? Well, 5,050 is more than 5,000. So I don't want that value. I want the values that are less than. So always put it in an application where you go, okay, if I want no more than $5,000, I don't want more than 5,000. I want less than, okay? So for this particular one, no more than is your less than sign. Other terms that you're going to use is less than, greater than. At least is another one. So if you see the term at least, so let's say this said they want to spend at least $5,000. Okay, so if it says at least, again, take it back to a practical application. Let's say you go to a job and you go, okay, I need to make at least $40,000. So you're in the interview, the manager offers you $35,000. Is that enough? No, because you want to make at least $40,000. In other words, $40,000 is your bottom line. So you want to make greater than that. So the term at least is going to be greater than or equal to. No more than is going to be less than or equal to. So those two are the two that are tricky. The less than and greater than, you can just read right into it and put the right symbol on there. So for this particular word problem, we're going to use the less than or equal to because we don't want to spend more than $5,000. So we want less than or equal to $5,000. Now, we need to go back and see what kind of information you're going to need. Well, you have $40 per acre for corn, and you have $32 per acre for soybeans. So those are your two variables. You want to know how much corn and how many acres of soybeans. So we're going to call this one X is for corn, and we're going to call Y soybeans. Now, you can use any other variable. So I could have used C and S, C for corn, S for soybeans. The only reason why I encourage you to use X and Y is because then you know which one is your x-axis and which one is your horizontal or y-axis. The other thing about inequalities, especially with word problems, is you're going to see indicators like this. X is greater than or equal to 0, and Y is greater than or equal to 0. All this indicates is we are working with positive values. All right? In other words, in reality, you can't have negative number of acres. You can't have negative distance. You can't have negative payroll. So what we're doing when you see this X and Y is greater than or equal to 0, all that means is we're dealing in the positive realm. So where you're going to graph is in the positive realm. So here is your Y, here is your X, and all we're doing is we are working in the first quadrant. That's all that means. Okay, here's your y-axis, here's your x-axis. All right, so let's look at the information. So we know we're going to have $40 for corn. So $40 times corn. We also know we're going to have 32 per acre for soybeans. So plus 32 for soybeans. And we know we want these values to be no more than $5,000. So there's your inequality. Okay, there's your inequality. 40x plus 32y is less than or equal to 5,000. Now you use the cover-up method. That's all you're going to do. You're going to find your y-intercept. X is 0, and you're going to do 5,000 divided by 32. And then you're going to do your x-intercept. That's when y is 0. And you're going to do 5,000 divided by 40. Okay? So let me do that real quick, and then we'll jump back into it. This is where you can use your calculator. And I forgot mine at home. So we're going to go 5,000 divided by 40, and that gives us our y-intercept. Okay? I'm sorry, that gives us, yes, that gives us our x-intercept. So when I divide by 40, what I'm dividing by is the number next to the x. So that's going to give us our x-intercept. So our x-intercept is 125, and then 5,000 divided by 32. So that's what we're looking for, the y-intercept. So that is 156.25. Okay, now where the applications come in is now we have to create our graph to fit our inequalities. That's why you always want to get your y and x intercepts first, always. So find your y and x intercepts, get those values, and then make your graph fit whatever those values are. So I know my x-intercept is going to be at 125. So I can go, you can go by 5s, you can go by 10s, you can go by 25s. For our purposes, I'm going to go by 25. So I'm just going to make my graph fit what we're working with. And I always go up one step. So here is my x-intercept. My y-intercept is 156.25. So I can also go by 25s. So you always want to try and get your x and your y intervals to be the same. So just pick a number where it will fit both. Okay, now again, when graphing, the graph is not what is the most important. It's the values that are the most important. So when I graph it, I'm going to go 156.25. So here's 150. So it's going to be kind of close to 150. It's not going to be closer to 175. It does not have to be exact, but you know it's going to be between 150 and 175. Now, we have our less than and greater than sign. So that means I'm going to have a solid line. Okay. And then we have to do our test point. So don't forget the test point, because we have to figure out where are we shading, right? Is it above the line or is it below the line? So when I plug in my zeros here, I end up with 0 is less than or equal to 5,000. This is a true statement. So I'm going to shade where the 0, 0 is. So remember, there's my 0, 0. So we're only dealing in the positive. So the shading is going to be below the line and above the x and y axis. And that is an application to graphing an inequality. Now, as far as your answers, these solutions in here, these are all the solutions. So I can have a point at 75.25. So that means I have 75 acres of corn, 25 acres of soybeans. I will be within that value of 5,000. It will be less than 5,000. So the idea is, at most, you can have 125 acres of corn and 0 acres of soybeans, or you can have 156.25 acres of soybeans and 0 acres of corn. So whatever you're looking for any value within this shaded region. That's the feasible region.